Natalie Dormer.
Richard Madden.
Natalie Dormer.
Richard Madden.
And Natalie Dormer.
And Richard Madden. Yeah.
And hello there, and welcome back to Arternoon Tea, where the tagline definitely is...
The niche of the niche or niche, we like quiche.
Well done, well done.
Thank you
Unbeknownst to
very
you, that took 3 takes because we forgot our own tagline. Anyway, Demi, how was your week?
My week was pretty good.
Yeah.
I started on my independent film practice project, which is really cool. It's gonna be really weird though. It's gonna be really experimental.
She's gonna
really
get...
pretentious artsy student stuff. And
you're gonna get all Lars von Trier's up in their grills.
No, I'm sorry. I've been
Not that
traumatized
far.
by Lars.
Not that far.
No, it's just going to be very artsy. I can't say more to it because it's so abstract.
Yeah.
It's really hard to explain what the hell this project is.
Ooh.
So, we shall see. Y'all gonna see. But yeah, apart from that, all is good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, uni life is uni life.
Mm-hmm.
We are in week 8. So that...
No, 7.
No, week 8, man. I mean,
8.
we're going on week 8.
Oh, we're going... Yes, we're going on week 8.
which
At the
means
moment,
that
we're
we have
at week
4
7. Don't
Yeah,
do
but
this
it
to
means that
me.
you got 4 weeks left. And I had that existential crisis last night. I was like, oh my god.
Oh, she's
Semester 1 is almost done. I didn't even start thinking about my essays,
No.
let alone my dissertation. I was just, okay, I'm good.
I told everyone,
I'm good.
my supervisor gave up on giving me deadlines for the dissertation because now they just go, Alice, bring whatever you can. Anything.
And you know what you're supposed to do, after having one of them crises? You're just like, you go like, okay, I'm gonna get my life together.
No,
and
you don't.
I watched Nightmare Before Christmas instead. I was just like, no, I need consolation.
When all else fails, watch Nightmare Before Christmas. That's always a good thing to
And
do.
it's one good film, and I was shook to find out that it was only an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah,
I
remember.
genuinely thought it was longer for some reason.
Because it's so good. There's so much packed in. There's so much stuff happening that you probably thought it was longer. You didn't think they managed to squeeze that in.
But yeah, it was very chill, very sweet.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Alice? How was your lovely week?
I spent most of the week tossing stuff in acid.
Acid!
That was fun. Because I'm doing printmaking. I'm doing Aquitaine printmaking, and that involves a lot of gas mask, a lot of gloves, and a lot of tossing things in acid.
Yeah,
It's
stuff
great.
that I like. Yeah.
But we collectively
What?
went to the Travelling Talesman
We
together.
We did.
The Travelling Talesman is great. He travels around, not just Cambridge, travels around the UK.
Oh, the UK.
Yeah, and he tells folk tales while he dissects them as he was telling them. And we went to the Cambridge one.
Yeah.
And this year it was, the theme of the show was wolf bites.
So it's everything based on werewolves. And it was pretty cool.
It was so cool.
It was pretty fun. Great first experience though. And I sort of felt, man, because I was thinking I've been here for 3 years, and it's just the first year that I'm going to see this dude, and so I'm just like, I've been missing out on so much.
Yeah.
This dude was really cool.
He was so invested. Like, we were so far away from him. We were at, like, the back of the pub.
We were.
But we still got everything, because he's so tall, and he looks like
Yes.
Jesus, and he's, like, dramatically.
He's not that proper old school dude that goes around. He's a proper talesman. He just goes around and is like, hear ye, listen to my story. It's really cool. It's really good. And we found out loads of stuff about werewolves too.
Yeah, it was new stuff that we didn't know.
So
about
it was also
werewolves.
educational.
Yeah, it's like, you know what I told when I was trying to sell this
I'm a
to
star.
Daria and Yemi. I said sometimes he dissects the story as he's telling it, and as he does that, you're sitting there like, this dude did better research than I did for my entire dissertation. I don't know how to feel about that.
Whoops.
Yeah. It was really really fun.
So this week's topic is very random. Like, we tried hard. We tried to figure out what we were going to talk about this week for hours.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't pinpoint what we wanted to do, But then...
retroactively, after we chose the topic, we realized that it's not random because...
the second season is coming out.
Uh-huh.
Like now. Right now. They're airing it right now.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about...
Medici, Master of Florence, with a side dish
versus
of the Tudors. The show. Very specifically, the show. Because it is amazing.
So basically what we're going to talk about is, to make a good show, a historical show, would you rather privilege the spectacle or historical accuracy? So the spectacle would be supported by the Tudors, and historical accuracy will be supported by Medici.
When is it relevant? When is it a good time for someone making historical show? When is it relevant for them to take artistic liberties? And when is it just stick to what happened?
Exactly.
Just stick to what happened. The Tudors came out in 2007, 8, around that time. Yeah, and it is about Henry VIII and his court. And Henry VIII, if you don't know, is a very notorious king in England, most famous for having 6 wives and breaking away with the church because he wanted a divorce. He wants to get some, and the Pope didn't let him, so he broke a whole country.
I'm gonna do whatever I
away
want
from
anyway.
the church. Ain't no Pope gonna tell me what to do.
Yeah, and funnily enough, they call it the Tudors.
But it's just about one Tudor.
Exactly, but it only talks about Henry.
Yeah, it's all about one. But to be fair, when people think of the Tudors, they normally think of Henry's time. Because if you're talking about Henry VII, then most people talk about War of the Roses, because he ended the War of the Roses, and his reign was quite peaceful. So, there's not a lot of drama to be made out of it, because he was a good king. He managed his stuff, by the time he died, England was the richest country in the world. So he's a shrewd businessman.
He's okay.
Most people like him. A bit problematic on whether he did or did not kill those children, but
that's a whole other story. But yeah,
but Henry is when shenanigans starts to happen.
Yes.
But then there'll be when it comes to Mary and Elizabeth, then it's the Elizabethan age, even though she's still technically a Tudor.
Technically. Yeah.
So even though the Tudor spans more, most people think of Henry VIII when they think of the Tudors.
Equals the Tudors.
Yeah. And Medici, Master of Florence, is a Netflix show about
the Medicis. Basically about these
very specifically the first series.
The first season is centered on Cosimo, who is the son of Giovanni.
Son of Giovanni.
And Giovanni is basically the one that started out this the Medici legacy, because they started out with nothing. They were peasants, and then they got into the bank business and became the richest and most powerful family in Florence. The series is centered on Cosimo, so his son, and his struggle to carry on the legacy, basically.
Expand the legacy.
Exactly, because they just got to their highest point at that point in the first season. So they're really struggling to maintain the power. Then Cosimo obviously has that little Michael Corleone problem. It's like, do I join the family business or do I do whatever I want?
Yeah.
And
because he's the younger brother, isn't he?
Yes.
Of the children of Giovanni.
And so he wants to be an artist. He was friends with Donatello.
Yeah.
And
not the Ninja Turtle.
But one day his dad found out that he wanted to be an artist, and he just shut down Donatello's studio.
His dad is Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, I mean,
freaking Dustin Hoffman. And who's Cosimo?
Richard Madden. My babe.
And Richard Madden is
Cosimo. What? The bodyguard now.
Oh yeah,
he's the bodyguard in Robb Stark.
There we go.
I got there.
It took a while, but we got there.
But yeah, and that's basically
the story. It followed Cosmo because
major plot.
Giovanni was very business with banking. We're a family of bankers. Business is where you do, and then Cosmo tries to expand the legacy of the Medici to include the patrons of art, to be more culture, to affect Florence more culturally, because at that point Florence didn't have an identity. because Italy was split into different states and different city-states.
Yeah, there were just a bunch of
and the Venetian had their boats thing and their
had business
mass thing
from like Asia.
Yeah, and Rome had the Pope thing. The Pope thing, and Florence didn't have
Milan was in war at that time.
Oh yeah.
Because they're trying to finance the war, and Cosimo instead builds the cathedral.
Yeah. So Cosimo's trying to expand the family legacy, and then later, the most famous of Medici probably is his grandson, his nephew. Yes, Lorenzo the Magnificent.
Oh right, is it his nephew?
Is it his nephew?
Is it his nephew?
Is it?
No, his grandson.
See, I said grandson.
Sorry, you are right. His grandson. Yes, you are right.
My history teacher will be proud.
Son. There you go.
Yeah. The next the 2 generation down.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Lorenzo the Magnificent, and he is very big, very influential. He basically kickstarted the famous Italian Renaissance.
Yeah.
All the Ninja Turtles went through him.
If there wasn't Lorenzo.
If there were no Lorenzo, there'd be no Ninja Turtles. So Michelangelo went through him.
Leonardo.
Leonardo was like brief stints with the Medici because he's a man of many fancies, but he had a
They had a love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
Botticelli
was his big one. Botticelli was his passion project. His man. That's the brief history of the Tudors and the Medici. But we're focusing specifically on the show. And the Tudors. I'm personally very passionate about historical accuracy.
I feel you.
Because sometimes it really irks me if it's not historically accurate, because I feel like it's falsely portraying something. Because, you can have the argument it's not a documentary, but then a lot of people will, it's on, this is their prime source of information.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I feel like the filmmakers have a responsibility to make it, to not commit character assassination.
Yeah.
Having said that,
The Tudors.
The Tudors was great. It was...
I mean, okay, so story-wise, it was a historical Gossip Girl, so you just oh my god.
It gave no fucks about historical accuracy. No. This is how little of a fuck Henry VIII had 2 sisters. The screenwriter went, it's too confusing, just merge their stories and we'll be fine.
You know what was the reason, though, why they merged it?
Because Mary and...
that's such a lazy excuse.
Yeah,
because... maybe they were going to confuse it with his daughter. I was like, excuse me, they're 2 different actresses. I'm pretty sure people will know how to make a difference.
Yeah. The real Henry VIII had 2 sisters, Mary and Margaret.
Yeah.
And he also had 2 daughters, Elizabeth and Mary. And Mary later became the famous Bloody Mary. So they were like, but they might confuse his daughter. So they merged the 2 sisters, Mary and Margaret, into one and just name her Margaret.
Yeah.
So she does both the shenanigans.
Exactly.
Which is a lot of things happening.
Imagine having a person actually go through all of the shit that she went through.
But the Tudors was the launching pad for a lot of famous actors that we all know and love today.
Natalie!
Like the lovely Natalie Dormer, who played Anne Boleyn, who is my obsession. And
Henry.
And Henry Cavill was Charles Brandon in it. And that was my first exposure to Brandon. Oh no, my first exposure to Henry Cavill.
Brandon? I was like, what?
It was my first exposure to Brandon.
Well, yeah, technically.
Nobody
knows about him.
So Charles Brandon is Henry VIII's bestie. He had like a little gang.
He's Duke of what? Suffolk. Duke of something.
One of them.
Yeah, first Duke of whatever.
Yeah, and he had a little gang of like his little frat boys, and Charles Brandon was his bestie. Yeah. But the Tudors was just an excuse to watch hot people have sex in historical costumes.
Yes.
There were so many sex scenes.
That is so true.
At one point, they ran out of ways to get Natalie Dormer to be naked. So they decided, we ran out of historical events. What shall we do? Oh, I know, dream sequence. He had a fever dream about Natalie, about Anne Boleyn running through the halls of Hampton Court, and then suddenly she went behind the door, and the door closed.
And what happened?
And he was like, the door closed. I'm the king. Open this door. And the door magically opened, and there she was in her birthday suit. And then,
I agree.
And then he woke up.
It's just
It was ludicrous. It was ridiculous.
Who the hell wrote those dream sequences, though? Because they're really... dream sequences, flashbacks, or whatever are really hard to write, especially in a TV show, because it can just look tacky.
They got some B-roll footage of Natalie Dormer in a dress running through Hampton Court, and they're like, yeah, now we're gonna use that.
A bunch of frat boys' fantasies.
And speaking of Henry Cavill, his most iconic scene in the whole series was when
boat?
No, there was the boat.
There was the boat
because
scene.
he was assigned to escort Henry's sister to her new husband, but they decided to get fiddling on the boat because when you're on a boat, you're confined.
They got physical on the boat.
Things are rocking. So when they got back, they were like, Henry, we fancy getting married. I know you married her off to that other bloke, but can we get married instead? And obviously, being a king of sensible mind, how are you going to settle this problem? With an arm wrestle, of course. A 5-minute long arm wrestling.
I was just like...
Their veins were popping, sweat was just like...
And then...
it was the most...
I don't know if you saw... They explored every type of camera angle in that bit.
The cameraman went insane. Just 2 men arm wrestling. He was doing zoom-ins, he was panning.
I don't know. I don't get...
But yeah. So, even though I'm a massive fan of historical accuracy, the Tudors didn't care about historical accuracy. But it's the intention that matters. They never set out to inform anyone of... They didn't set out to tell this story.
They just wanted a juicy, captivating show.
Yeah.
And that's what they did.
Yeah. Because also they would assume that everyone who's watching the show already know the story. Yeah, so everyone who watches Tudor, he got 6 wives, this one died, this one got killed. So it's just about, sexing it up and all that. But Medici, Master of Florence, took a vastly different approach.
Yeah, and it was just... It's so damn accurate.
It was beat by beat by beat.
Yeah.
Because both me and you, we both memorized the story of the Medici, which is strangely less well known than the Tudors story. Because there's no neat rhyme to wrap it up.
It's more European.
Yeah, Italians would probably know. Yeah.
So, and I also think that this show, what they do, because as I said, when you try to do dream sequences or flashback or whatever, is so tricky to do. What they do in Medici is that they basically talk about 20 years. Because they go back and forth between when Giovanni was alive.
Yeah.
And
when Giovanni died.
When he died
it's a word. He died it. Giovanni died it.
Yeah. Because that's how the story starts, basically. It's a murder. It starts out as murder mystery because...
Who killed Giovanni?
Cosimo is convinced that he's been poisoned.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just starts at this murder mystery. But it's true. Everything that happened during Cosimo's time is absolutely true.
Mm.
His struggle to maintain
power
in the Signoria, which is basically
the Senate.
The Senate, yeah. Call it the Senate. Then his struggle to also maintain his relationship with the Pope and the Vatican, because then there was another family in Florence who was trying to meddle within the family.
Yeah. And then there's a struggle with his brother.
Who was super hot-headed.
He was like, let's go. His response to everything is, let's fight him.
Exactly.
That's fine. And then let's listen.
Cosimo's the brain.
We're a bank. Let's fight him. We're a bank.
And then it also... It's just everything about it is just accurate. I can't think of a flaw. Obviously, it's still a TV show, so there has to be a little bit of spectacle in it, and there's all that.
But the thing about it is the spectacle
adultery
were
and all that stuff.
Were accurate spectacles.
Yeah.
Those stuff did happen.
Yeah.
When I was watching it, I remember thinking, okay, at this point, this should happen. I really hope they can... Oh, there it is. This point, this should... I was being that little snob, that little bookworm, so I'm like, this is where this part should happen. And they did, and I was so happy. But the thing about Medici is, even though it's a well-known story, but not to this audience, and because so, they're like, we don't need to invent more stuff.
No.
What there's already so spectacular.
That's legit when you see that history it's an already written script.
Yeah.
Because the things that happened in Italy at that time, and also in fun. So I don't really understand why you have to base it on the Tudors, you know? You could have invented another family or whatever if you just wanted
but
for it to
because
be spectacle. But
no, that's the thing. Because the Tudors, it's easy because everyone already know the story, so they don't have to burden themselves with trying to tell the story. So the point of the Tudors is quick sell. They need to sell sex. This is
bang.
Because the Tudors don't need to tell a story anymore because everyone already knows the story. So we just need to. Just when you watch it, they literally just speed through the important plot points to get to the sex scenes. It was weird. Except for Anne Boleyn's death, they took time with that, and Natalie Dormer delivered a beautiful job. And it was
she
great.
died well.
She died well.
She
with
died
the whole,
well.
and then like they cut her head, and then she went, oh, and the camera followed her. Oh.
Bless her soul, man. Bless Anne Boleyn's soul. Personally,
yeah,
I'd rather watch a show like Medici.
Obviously,
because history geeks. So you just really want accuracy in one of them shows. Yeah. I understand the Tudors fascination, but for example, it didn't stick that much to me.
But the thing is,
in I barely remember anything that happened except for the sex scenes.
Also, after Anne Boleyn, the thing just well, because Anne Boleyn is where like the best stuff happened. The rest is just the rest is going through the motion. Oh, he's bored with this one. Oh,
but
that's the next one.
funnily enough, so Anne dies in the second season.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, the third season, which is the most successful season, is the one with
the most boring wife.
Yeah, with the most boring wife, but with the most accurate, like historically most accurate one.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Which is so weird.
With the whole birthing and everything.
And then it dropped down to the worst season, which was the fourth season. Bad. And it was the one with the most historical inaccuracy.
It was bad. Yeah, I remember it was so bad afterwards.
There's so many problems. If you go on Wikipedia, the pages on historical inaccuracies of the
just goes on forever.
Just goes on and on and on and on.
That is a fair point, because I think I stopped paying attention after the second series as well.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I feel like the Tudors did catch a bit of lightning in a bottle-ish, because that was new. It was new. This is new. It's like at that point it was still kind of fresh. You see the Tudors, and everyone wants to know about the Tudors because the Tudors are juicy. But that doesn't mean that formula is one that works.
Yeah.
Because they tried to do it with Versailles, and oh dear,
Versailles didn't work.
Mm-hmm. I stand by that Versailles didn't work because they kept the historical hair. There I disagree. We had this discussion. There I disagree. She said that hair looks fine. I disagree. I strongly disagree. That is not sexy hair. If you want to film a sex scene, do not film it with those wigs.
Get Henry Cavill hair. The one that goes...
The one that goes like that. Or like in the Tudors, where they just gave everyone buzz cuts. Like Tudor buzz... Because if they had accurate Tudor hair, no one would watch it. No one. I stand by it. The real Tudors had awful hair.
Or makeup.
It was ridiculous.
Because it was ugly ass people.
But then that leads us to like the states of historical fans show nowadays in this post Game of Thrones days.
Yeah.
Where everyone's even more... That's another reason why the Tudors wouldn't work today, because Game of Thrones now has just opened the sex door.
And that was the problem with Game of Thrones, though. That's what they started out really sexy, and then they toned it down.
Yeah, because
it became really gory.
You bring people in with the sex, but they stay for the story.
Yeah,
and that's where the Tudors failed to captivate after the story of Anne Boleyn, because that's where all the good part of the story is, and that's where Versailles failed to do it, because there's no story there. It's just an excuse to watch people have sex in bad wigs.
In pompous costumes.
Yes. But then that's where Medici, they like almost bypassed the sex altogether. There were some sex scenes, but it's very intimate.
It was very intimate, and it was to explain certain things, just like Cosmo's
it was like accumulation of like, there was character arc, the sex scene would build up to. It wasn't just tossed in like biscuits.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
it was actually what happened. Whereas what the Tudors did, they just... obviously Henry VIII was a very
randy dude,
sexually active person, but
with his lame leg and his cut.
But they crammed it, and so it just went over the top. Whereas
and there's no story to tie it together.
No. Yeah. No, it really is about his relationships, and that's it.
And by the time you're bored with that
all the politics and war and whatever is in the background.
Yeah. Whereas they should make that
exactly.
after Anne Boleyn's done, they should then switch the focus onto that political, because after Anne Boleyn's done, the focus should then be on Cromwell, on Wolsey, on Cranmer, because then those are the men, the story with those men is so much more interesting. But that is where Wolf Hall came in. Wolf Hall was about Thomas Cromwell. Specifically about Thomas Cromwell. So it's telling the Henry VIII story, but specifically from Thomas Cromwell's perspective, which is very interesting. Because in the Tudors and in most shows about the Tudors, Thomas Cromwell is always painted out as a scheming man. He's a peasant and he schemed his way to the top. He's a snake. But then they got Mark Rylance to portray him, and you watch it and you're like, I understand you.
How can you not like Mark Rylance?
And there was a Mark Rylance sex scene, and I was confused. I was not turned on.
I forgot about.
I was very confused, because I did not expect it to happen.
I forgot about that.
I felt that was unnecessary.
So yeah, I wish you didn't remind me of that.
It felt like the screenwriters were like, no, we're telling Wolf Hall. We're serious. It's about politics. It's about a man's struggle. But then the execs but you gotta
the Tudors.
But then the execs go, but you gotta throw a sex scene in, and then the screenwriters like, look at the characters. Who do you think we could give a sex scene to?
Who didn't have a sex scene?
No, but the way the show's structured. There's no one. You wouldn't want to watch a sex scene of anyone because you don't care much about the other characters. It's about Cromwell. Yeah. So the only one who could have a sex scene in that show is Cromwell. And I wish they didn't, but they did. Yeah. Now, since after the lessons learned by the Tudors and by Versailles and now historical shows are still coming, and they're starting to learn that you can draw people in with sex, but you need to have a story to keep them staying put, because they're doing Les Mis.
They are. They're doing it's BBC, isn't it?
Yeah, and BBC did War and Peace, which also sold in the exact same way. They were like, this is the BBC sexy version of War and Peace. We're gonna sex up Tolstoy. Are you ready?
But they barely did.
Yeah.
They barely did.
Yeah, because that's what you sell. That's what you hook people with. But then they stay because of the story.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's the moral of this podcast. You hook them in with the sex.
But then show them actual educational stuff.
That is why the title of this is probably a very scandalous one that'll come up at 2 a.m.
That's it.
But clickbait!
Oh, I'm so excited for the second season, though. Oof.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Lorenzo.
Right before submissions, though.
Oh, no.
I don't care.
Oh, no.
But yeah.
That'll be really good Christmas binging. Because what can be more festive than Lorenzo de Medici? With all his pagan stuff. There's there's one quick fact before we end. The reason why there was so much great art in during the Renaissance was because before that, most art is patronized and commissioned by the Pope and by the Church. So it's mostly Jesus. And all the artists just go, just give me anything.
No more.
Like anything else. You give me anything else to paint but Jesus? And then Lorenzo de Medici came in. It's like, Greeks! You can paint anything you want. So, can I paint Venus on a half shell? Yes, of course. You can. Can I paint? And then all the artists went, oh my God, there's so much. You mean I don't have to paint Jesus?
No,
like,
man.
No. But what
draw
if
whatever you want, girl.
What if I do want to paint Madonna? Yes. Does she have to be blue? No. You mean I can paint Madonna in a different color?
Oh man. He revolutionized. And I can't wait to see how they're going to show this, though.
Because there's that really dramatic bit with him and his brother in the church, isn't it? And it reads like... I was reading the historical textbook version of it.
Oh.
was like reading a screen. It was like reading like a dramatic novel version, like that bit. I'm not gonna spoil, but when it comes, you're like, they're making this up, but they didn't, and it was mind blowing. And I reckon on that amazing cliffhanger teaser is where we should end this episode. I hope you learned something from this. Oh, the moral of this podcast is
favor historical accuracy.
You draw them in with the sex, but you keep them with the story. Think on that. And we'll see you again next week. Bye! Bye!